Hello everyone, this is Lean and welcome back to the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. Today I'm creating a Christmas card combining Crafty Meraki with my favorite things. So first of all, I'm starting with the coloring, and these images are from Polar Opposites. It's a stem set from my favorite things, and I'm doing some really simple coloring today. I'm also limiting the amount of markers or combinations that I'm using today. All these red accessories will have the same red combination. My polar bears will have the same combination, and my penguins as well, just to keep it simple. There are quite a lot of images on this card today, but just by limiting the amount of colors, I think you can get a really simple and classy card. Although I like a rainbow from time to time, I can really enjoy simplicity on cards. So that's what I'm doing today. I also must admit, I stamp these images quite often just to get that lovely black on the penguins. Now it also led to the fact that the other images were really juicy, and apparently when I started coloring one of the polar bears, I smudged the ink, which I don't have often, but I just restarted with that one polar bear that failed or that was smudged. So just so you know. I'm not going to show you the failed one, but there was a failed one. As you can see here, I just crossed it so that it was clear that this one wasn't going to end up on the card. But I am stamping it out again and showing you the coloring of that one without smearing the inks. If you're not sure about the ink you're using, and when I smudge anything, I also have the reflex to just heat set everything to be sure. Just a quick heat set, and then normally you can continue. However, if you use the wrong ink, of course, then you will still have that bleeding or that smudging. The paper that I'm using today, as most of the time, is the Transotype coloring paper. I'm using Gina Designs Amalgam ink, which is an ink that is wonderful for watercoloring and for alcohol markers. So that's why I use it this way. I personally cannot mess up the ink I use to stamp out my images. So I'm almost there. As I said, really simple coloring, also limiting the amount of combinations. And I'm working my way from the darkest towards the lightest color. That's just how I prefer coloring with my Copic markers, but however you prefer coloring is totally fine. There are many ways to Copic color, and there are so many techniques. Just do whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever gives you that result that you really want, and what leads to having fun while coloring. So now that everything is colored in, I'm going to use the matching dies to cut everything out. Later on, I will also cut out one more item, the string for the sleigh. And then it's time to create my background. So I'm using the Scenic Route Slimline die from Crafty Meraki, and I'm going to cut it out at once. I have this wonderful basic rectangle that is inside of this set. I love that. There are stitching details, and then you have this sort of oval, and I love this die. In the beginning I didn't snip these two apart, but I already used the rectangle separately, so therefore it's not attached anymore, but I can still see where the insert was sort of just by using or by checking where I have those little small pieces of metal that I didn't snip off completely. So to create my scene, I first wanted to check how I would place everything, because I have quite a lot of images. Personally, for me, these are a lot of images. And once I'm happy with the layout, I can sort of see where I want to use this stencil. This one is the Drifts and Hills stencil from my favorite things. And I'm using Stormy Sky Distress ink to get some color on this background. Now, in this stamp set, there are a lot of lovely sentiments, love-themed, also winter or Christmassy themed sentiments, but I wanted to have more neutral Christmas sentiments, so I'm using the Bitty Holiday Wishes from my favorite things. There are many bitty wishes, their birthday, just the basics. There are several bitty sentiments stamps, and I really love that because there are so many options. But if you want to make, for example, or remake several cards, but you don't want to have it exactly the same, just switch up the sentiments. And there are several sizes of sentiments, so you can definitely have lots of use just by having those bitty sentiments for my favorite things. So I'm switching in between the stencil, and I'm using some post-its there where I think I might overlap with blending, which I prefer not to have. So just adding it there where the stencil is touching what I already blended. And I'm just working my way towards the top. I'm going to add a few more hills, definitely for these two images. And then I will just softly also use the same ink to give it a bit of a sky. And I'm really softly ink blending. This can be way harder if you want to, but I'm tapping off the excess ink and going with a really soft hand, because I don't want this background to take over. So I'm keeping it really soft, also adding that sky, as I said, just by adding a bit of ink on the edges on the top of this panel. And then I saw this small piece that could like be there for the sleigh to pull it. So I just cut it out. I laid that stamp in the negative, and then I put in the positive of this die cut. Stamped out the this is not a sentiment. I stamped out the stamp, and then I could continue with the sentiment. So for the sentiment, I'm also using the same ink again. I think it's handy if you can just reuse inks. This way everything returns. I really love it when there are colors that return, or inks. Yeah, that's just how I may prefer my cards. I'm going to assemble it now, and just to be able to inlay this without having the rest of the panel shift, I temporarily added it to the card base using this dot roller. And now I'm going to add some Scotch 3M foam tape to add this frame on top of the card base as well. This way I have still a really simple card, but playing a bit with dimension gives it something extra without taking over. So I'm taking my time to add this straight on top of my card base, and then I'm pressing it down once I'm happy with placement. And then it's time to add the critters. Now therefore I'm using a combination of liquid glue, also some more of this Scotch 3M foam tape to have the same height as the frame, and then I will also add some images with some thin foam squares. So several ways to add dimension. And this way I can also play with what's in front of it and what's behind other critters. So I'm building up this card, and this is the part where I get really excited just by seeing everything come together. The small idea that you had in your head is coming to life on your card. I think that's adorable to see. And then we are almost done with assembling. Now I contemplated about adding embellishments. I decided to not do that on this card because it was still so simple in the end, and I really wanted to keep it that way. Now I have colored in several of those hats. I'm going to add a few, and then I decided to add a tiny detail. When I have some Christmas hats, anything like that, I really like it to add some extra white crystal drops, so the Simply White one from NUVO, to those white details. Definitely on Christmas hats. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to add any embellishments. I tried it, I didn't like it. I thought it was taking away on the simplicity. So to avoid that, just adding everything. I'm not going to add all the hats that I colored in. I will just keep it at the back of my stamp set for maybe next time. And then I'm going to add those final details, as I said, using some Simply White NUVO crystal drops. And this will give some shine and dimension on top of these hats. And I really like that. So that is my card for today. A simple but classic Christmas card, if you ask me. I hope that you enjoyed this video and of course that you like the end result. Thank you so much for stopping by. I wish you all a fabulous day and I hope to see you back soon. Bye!